Oh, you're going to absolutely love this plot twist. So, 300,000 years ago, Zu, if you remember, was actually the grandson of Alululu, if you remember, the guy that bit the king's private parts. So the grandson was on Mars, if you remember, where we left the story. And 300,000 years ago, he was the one that actually, after his father had passed, as we know, he was the one that went and helped the Aigi, and then went down to the planet, and then ended up with the fight with Ninurtu. So that's the grandson of Alululu, which kind of makes sense because Alululu seemed to be a bit of a character as well. So it's all making sense now, and it's far better than TV shows. So keep tuned and I'll keep going. 300,000 years ago, the Annunaki workers that were mining got really angry and went to Enki and his sister, Ninshirag, I'm totally pronouncing them wrong, and said, look, blah, 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 we don't want to work anymore, our conditions are terrible. So they come up with the idea to create a slave worker, based on the indigenous characters that were on Earth at the time. Now, this is a reconstruction of someone that may have been on Earth. Now, they went to Enlil and suggested this, and they went to their king, which was King Anu, and suggested this idea. But Enlil said, no, absolutely not. We can't make him in our image because it should only be, true bloodline. It should only be the one true creator that could create people like us, blah, blah, blah. But the Council of Seven that do the rulings ruled, yes, create a slave. Enki was in South Africa at the time because he was doing helping with the mining. So they captured some wild men, as they called them, which really were the indigenous species at the time. Now, it could have been Homo erectus, could have been Homo florensis, it could have been any of them, really. We're not 100% sure. So they managed to capture and start doing many tests, many failed. And eventually they managed to create Adam, which, as we know, technically is human as an individual or mankind as a collective. It actually came with a U as well, Adamu, because they always seem to stick funny letters at the end of their words as opposed to what we do, or we shorten them either way. And eventually they managed to create a slave race from the indigenous species using Enki's sister to bear the child from artificial insemination. When I was talking in the last videos about Ninurta, he obviously attacked and beat Anzu or Zu. And that was around 300,000 years ago. Now, obviously, his mum turned up 300,000 years ago to Earth, expecting a child, which was Ninurta. So when we say things like, 300,000 years ago, there could be a difference between 5,000 years, which is quite long. So obviously, by the time Ninurta went off and attacked and beat Anzu, he was probably, in his 20s in their terms as opposed to our terms. So that was that. And also, Ninshirag, probably pronounced wrong, stopped at Mars. Now, she stopped at Mars on the way to Earth 315,000 years ago. Was there atmosphere on Mars at that point? Mainstream media tell us that 4 billion years ago was the last time Mars had atmosphere, but we all know mainstream lie. So, was there atmosphere? Did she land on Mars and stay there for a short period and then move on to Earth? Which seems a logical thing, just to sit in a spaceship on Mars and then carry on to Earth seems illogical. So there must have been some sort of atmosphere there. Now, as some people have said that there was an indigenous race on Mars before they had a war. Now, whether or not that war's to do with the Annunaki, I'll get to that down the line on other videos. But there seems to be some sort of nuclear war that happened on Mars. And some people say there was an indigenous race on Mars that were the Chinese people, or looked like Chinese people. And they fled Mars and came to Earth. Now, whether or not this was after Ninshirag stayed on Mars? I don't know. So these are good questions to ask, because why didn't they use the Chinese people as slaves as opposed to creating humans on Earth if there was them there at that time? Obviously, if there was radiation from a nuclear war, then Nincharaga probably wouldn't have stayed on Mars. So any thoughts on these, I'd appreciate. There was a feature film called One Annunaki that was due to be released. It was made in 2004 but never got released in 2006, which is a real shame. Now if you look on the BFI website, it sort of just gives you who was involved, etc., but for whatever reason it never got finished or never got released. And that led me to an idea, because I actually am a film director. I've directed 7 feature films, I've directed and produced films, I've edited films, I've done screenplays for other people, I've done screenplays for myself. So I'm quite versed. I was in Pinewood Studios, I had my own studios as well. Obviously this was not some time back, but before I did other bits and pieces, so I do lots of various different things. But then I thought, well, wonder if you guys would be interested if I set up a Kickstarter campaign, which is basically a funding site where you can chip in some money. Would you guys be interested in putting into a Kickstarter campaign? Now, the film would obviously be a feature film shot primarily for cinema, if we can get a distribution company for it, and there'll be parts in there that we can have for you guys if you're interested in being extras in the film. Obviously if you can act, then let us know, and I would, view your show reels, etc., and if possible try and cast some of you guys as well. So what do you think? Do you think the world would be interested in seeing what really happened in a movie format as opposed to what we get told now? Now, obviously, I would, if this was to go ahead, I would obviously collaborate with many of the well-known researchers that we all know and love and have seen on TV, just to make sure that I get it as accurate as possible, because I want people to see who the Annunaki were, and not sort of be blindsided by what we're told now in sort of the Bibles and things. I would like to go back to our roots. If they can have the Bible and believe how that's written, but I would like to show a proper film showing exactly what's gone on with the Annunaki. So let me know your thoughts, just so I know whether or not it's worth pursuing a Kickstarter campaign. Would you be interested in putting some money? It's not a lot. Normally people can put anything from sort of £1 to 500 quid if they want to, whatever, but no set limit. But I just want to know your thoughts. Would you be interested if I was to set that up and get the film made? Thanks for your time.